Imagine if a single man, a convicted murderer, a fugitive gambler, and an undeniable financial genius was handed the keys to the entire economy of the most powerful nation in Europe. Imagine he promised to make everyone rich, to banish poverty forever, with a magical new invention: paper money. This isn't a fantasy. It happened. This is the story of John Law and the Mississippi Bubble. It is the story of a financial experiment so vast and so audacious, it gave the world the word millionaire before it plunged an entire kingdom into ruin. This is the story of what happens when a nation trades all of its gold for a single intoxicating idea. Our story begins in 1715. France was on its knees. The Sun King, Louis XIV, was dead. His decades of endless wars and extravagant spending on palaces like Versailles had left the kingdom utterly, hopelessly bankrupt. The national debt was a monster, and the metal currency, gold and silver, had all but vanished. France was a superpower facing financial oblivion. Into this crisis stepped our unlikely savior, John Law, a brilliant Scottish economist and a charismatic gambler who had been forced to flee Britain after killing a man in a duel. Law had a revolutionary theory. He believed that a nation's wealth wasn't its pile of gold and silver, but the productivity and commerce of its people. And to unleash that commerce, you needed a fluid, abundant currency. His solution? Replace heavy, scarce metal with light, easily printed paper. He convinced the desperate French regent to let him try his system. In 1716, he established France's first national bank, the Banque Générale. It was a private bank, but with royal authority. It accepted people's gold and silver coins, and in return issued paper banknotes. These notes were reliable, easy to carry, and promised to be redeemable for coin on demand. For the first time, France had a stable, trustworthy paper currency. Commerce began to revive. John Law was hailed as a genius. But this was only step one. Step two was the engine that would power the entire dream, the Mississippi Company. Law was granted a monopoly on all trade and development in the vast, largely unexplored French territory of Louisiana in North America. To fund this venture, the company sold shares to the public, and Law began a marketing campaign of epic proportions. Louisiana was depicted not as a swampy, undeveloped wilderness, but as a mythical paradise, a Garden of Eden, overflowing with gold, silver, and precious gems just waiting to be picked from the trees. The French public, desperate for hope and hypnotized by the promise of infinite riches, took the bait. They began trading their government bonds and their precious gold for shares in the Mississippi Company. And the stock price began to rise. From 500 livres a share, it climbed to 1,000. John Law then merged his national bank and his trading company, effectively giving him control over both the money supply of France and its greatest corporate asset. He had become the most powerful man in the country. A speculative madness unlike anything the world had ever seen gripped the city of Paris. The center of the frenzy was a narrow medieval street called the Rue Quincampoix. It became a frenzied, open-air stock market. People from every social class, dukes and maids, bishops and blacksmiths, crammed into the street, fighting to buy shares. Fortunes were made in an instant. A humble servant could become fabulously wealthy in a single week. It was here that a new word was born to describe these newly rich: millionaire. The demand was so insane that people were trampled to death in the crowds. Legend tells of a hunchback who made a fortune by renting out his curved back as a writing desk for traders to sign their contracts on in the crowded street. The price of Mississippi Company stock went vertical. 1,000 livres became 2,000, then 5,000, then an unbelievable 10,000 livres per share. The bubble fed on itself. To keep the stock price rising, Law's bank simply printed more and more paper money, which people then used to buy more stock. The company absorbed the entire French national debt, the right to collect all taxes, and all other overseas trading companies. The Mississippi Company didn't just dominate the French economy, it was the French economy. And John Law, the fugitive gambler, was its undisputed king. He was appointed Controller General of Finances, making him the most powerful man in Europe, controlling the destiny of millions with the stroke of his pen. He was at the absolute apex of the world. But an economy built on pure belief is a fragile thing. The first crack in the illusion appeared when a powerful nobleman, the Prince de Conti, decided to cash out. He sent 3 wagons to Law's bank and demanded to redeem his mountain of paper banknotes for real gold. Law was furious, but had to honor the promise. The sight of wagons filled with gold leaving the bank sent a tremor of fear through the system. For the first time, people began to wonder, was the paper in their hands really as good as gold? The prince's withdrawal was the pin that pricked the bubble. The spell was broken. A wave of doubt turned into a tsunami of panic. Everyone, all at once, wanted to do the same thing: trade their paper money back for real gold. A massive bank run began. Hysterical crowds mobbed the Banque Générale, desperate to get their hands on solid coin before it ran out. Several people were crushed to death in the stampede. John Law was trapped. To meet the demand for gold, he needed to stop the panic. And to stop the panic, he made his final, fatal error. He used his power as Controller General to issue a royal decree. The value of the Mississippi Company stock would be gradually reduced. He thought an orderly deflation would calm the market. Instead, it was an official admission that the stock was not infinitely valuable. It confirmed everyone's worst fears. The market completely collapsed. The stampede to sell became an avalanche. The stock price plummeted from 10,000 livres back down to 500 and then to nothing. The paper fortunes of the new millionaires evaporated into thin air. At the same time, to try and prop up the system, Law had printed so much paper money that it caused rampant inflation, destroying the value of any cash people held. The French economy was shattered. The public, who had once hailed John Law as a savior, now bayed for his blood. He was the most hated man in France. In late 1720, the gambler who had once owned a kingdom was forced to flee the country in disguise, penniless and disgraced, his grand system in ruins. So what does this incredible story of the world's first central banker and history's first great stock market bubble teach us today? It is a profound warning about the nature of paper money and the seductive danger of a good story. John Law's system was not entirely a fraud. It was based on a brilliant, modern understanding of economics. But he tied the value of his currency to the ever-rising price of a single asset built on pure fantasy. History reminds us that when a government or a central bank has the power to print money, it holds the power to create incredible prosperity, but also the power to unleash absolute devastation. The Mississippi Bubble is the original case study for what happens when the promise of future growth becomes detached from present reality, a lesson that echoes in every tech bubble, every housing crisis, and every debate about quantitative easing in our own time. It's a 300-year-old story that proves that no matter how brilliant the system, you can't print your way to real sustainable wealth forever.
If you believe these lessons from the past are crucial for understanding our present, please show your support with a like. And to continue this journey through the forgotten financial stories that shaped our world, be sure to subscribe.